We're looking at the Enlightenment, and section 1, chapter 18 is called Philosophy in the Age of Reason. So an invention that took place during the Enlightenment was the hot air balloon. And this is probably a good symbol of the Age of Enlightenment, because here there was this thing floating in air and people in it, and the idea that humans could be like birds and they could float in the air. This is sort of what ideas did. Ideas took wings, and ideas, which are the basis of the Enlightenment, ideas began changing things. That's the Enlightenment. Some of the individuals in the Enlightenment that we'll look at, Adam Smith, John Locke. We've already looked at Descartes, Bacon, and Newton, especially the scientists, because the scientific revolution sort of was the beginning of the Enlightenment. In the 1500s and 1600s, when the scientific revolution took place. And so part of the Enlightenment was it gave great confidence in the power of reason, the power of the human mind. We can think things. So we see this gravitation from the Middle Ages, where God is the center, the church is the center, and now after the scientific revolution, we're moving into the Age of Enlightenment, where reason, the human mind and reason, sort of begin overshadowing the church and faith. So if reason works in the physical world, why not also the natural world and the thought world? So there's Isaac Newton doing his optics, and here's Jean-Jacques Rousseau, one of the Enlightenment thinkers. The philosophers of the Enlightenment talked about the state of nature and what it was like to build their philosophies.
Have you ever wondered what it was like before we had organized society with all our technology? Well, the philosophers of the Enlightenment, especially Thomas Hobbes and John Locke, philosophized about what they call the state of nature. What was man like in the beginning? Thomas Hobbes said it was a dog-eat-dog world. Life was brutish. It was dangerous. You didn't know if you would be stolen from or killed or raped. And so people needed, Hobbes said, a strong government, a monarchy that could have order so that their freedoms could have a place. John Locke was more optimistic about human nature, but he still believed that people in the state of nature would opt for a social contract, an agreement that they would give up some of their personal freedom in exchange for being protected by the government. When people would be living in a state of nature, as the two people pictured on the screen here, they'd have to be afraid of anything that happened from the outside.
Okay, so you can see the social contract was the basis of the state of nature, or was what came out of the state of nature. The state of nature was man in his aboriginal state, the beginning state, whether it was the Garden of Eden or man evolved. And so the philosophers of the Enlightenment debated about what was the nature of man at that time. So we have two views on the social contract. We have Thomas Hobbes and we have John Locke. Hobbes was in the English Civil War, was with the Cavaliers, or he was on the side of the king. And he believed that human nature was depraved and it was evil. John Locke, on the other hand, was on the side of the Roundheads, or the Puritans, the side of Parliament in the English Civil War. And so the views that they have sort of went along with their position in the English Civil War. John Locke said people were basically reasonable and moral. He did believe, he had sort of a biblical view that human nature was fallen like Hobbes, but he was a little bit more optimistic. People are basically reasonable and moral. Hobbes believed in the social contract, that people give up their freedom, some of their freedom, to be protected by the government. And John Locke also believed in the social contract, but he added this, that you should overthrow a government that violates natural rights. In other words, you don't give up your freedom to a government that's not protecting you. That's the provisional nature of the social contract. John Locke wrote a book called The Two Treatises of Government. Thomas Hobbes' book was called Leviathan, this large creature that's pictured in the Bible in the book of Job. And so Leviathan is sort of a symbol of the strong central government that was needed to be able to protect people. Hobbes, again, a Cavalier on the side of the kings, believed you needed a strong central government. Give us a king. Locke, on the other hand, being a Puritan, one of the Roundheads, being in favor of Parliament, he believed a limited monarchy was best, that would have a parliament that could check the king. Another philosopher of the Enlightenment, in this case a French philosopher, the other two, Hobbes and Locke, were English. Montesquieu wrote a book called The Spirit of the Laws, and in it he said, in a government you need to separate the executive the presidential, the legislative, the parliament, the Congress, and the judicial powers, executive, legislative, and judicial, should be separated. That way nobody becomes a dictator. Nobody becomes too powerful. This is the best way to protect liberty, Montesquieu said. It leads to checks and balances. And today we have in our government in the United States a separation of the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. We followed the ideas of Montesquieu. He criticized an absolute monarchy because it had too much power. Another Frenchman was Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau wrote a book called The Social Contract. He's famous for saying that man is born free and yet everywhere in chains. And these chains are caused by society. Society, messes people up. They're born free and then society messes up. But he did believe some social controls were good. And again, he believed that people were corrupted by the unequal distribution of power. They were corrupted by society, not by anything innate within them. He believed in the general will, and this is probably the greatest single teaching of Rousseau. The general will, the idea that what the community as a whole wants and what's good for the whole community. And he felt, and this is critical to the thinking of Rousseau, that the individual should subordinate himself to the community. So just looking at these European political thinkers, first the two Englishmen, Thomas Hobbes, believed that men are evil and they need a strong government for protection. His book is Leviathan. John Locke, his book is Two Treatises of Government. He believed that people have natural rights and that governments are needed to protect these rights, and you should change a government or rebel against a government that doesn't protect those rights. Montesquieu, the Frenchman, believed in separation of powers. He wrote the book called The Spirit of the Laws. And Jean-Jacques Rousseau believed that basically people were good, but they were corrupted by society, and the general will should be what directs government. The what's best for the people, the will of the people, and individuals should submit to that. He wrote The Social Contract. All right, the Philosophes were a group of Enlightenment thinkers, especially in France, and they were called the Philosophes. And Voltaire was a famous one. He was known to be an outspoken critic of hypocrisy and of superstition and religion that wasn't that was hypocritical. Diderot wrote an encyclopedia. Rousseau, of course, we've talked about, and Mary Wollstonecraft. She was one that said, "Hey, you've forgotten about us, and all you're talking about people being equal, and all you Enlightenment thinkers, you've made women to be a lower class of being." So Voltaire was against inequality, injustice. He said, "I don't agree with the word you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." So he believed in freedom of expression, even if people didn't agree with him, and he stood for that principle. And that's a key principle in the Enlightenment, defending freedom of inquiry, freedom of thought, free speech, as we say today. He was exiled, imprisoned by the government. He angered the church, and so he was banned and banished at times. Diderot, he's the one that wrote a 28-volume encyclopedia. He wanted to change people's way of thinking, so the way he wrote the articles was a new way of looking at things. He was an Enlightenment thinker. He denounced slavery, and again, this is the key to the Enlightenment, he praised freedom of expression. He attacked the notion of divine right as if God had chosen people to reign. That had been an idea all through the Middle Ages that prevailed all through Europe. And he attacked traditional religion. That, too, seemed to be a waymark of the Enlightenment. The government attacked his encyclopedia and him and threatened to excommunicate Diderot. Again, Mary Wollstonecraft, she said that the Philosophes, you don't give women natural rights. They're trying to keep me in my place. And she did believe that women should be good mothers, but she also believed that they could be much more. She said women have been excluded from the social contract. You men are making all the decisions about this stuff. She wrote Vindication of the Rights of Women. And education will give women tools to participate equally with men. So she was a firm believer that women should be able to be educated. The Physiocrats, this is a different group of Enlightenment thinkers now. They especially focused on economics. So we've got the Philosophes and now the Physiocrats who focused on economics. They rejected mercantilism, which had been the main way of thinking as the European nations were moving into the New World. Mercantilism is the idea you get a bunch of gold, that you have more trade, that you end up exporting more things than you import. The Physiocrats urged the policy of laissez-faire, a French phrase which sort of means that government is best which governs least. Give people freedom. Don't put a lot of restraints on people. They supported free trade, the Physiocrats did, and they said that extractive industries bring wealth, mining and agriculture, things that you can take from your existing resources in the country, so things you bring out of your own soil, both in agriculture and mining, those bring wealth. Adam Smith is the real centerfold for the Physiocrats. He wrote the book The Wealth of Nations in 1776, and to this day, this is the Bible for conservative thinking about economics, for free market thinking. In the book, Adam Smith said that the free market, that natural forces of supply and demand will end up regulating the market, that you don't need the government to come in and regulate the market. He called this the invisible hand, that people who apparently are acting greedy, the people trying to make money who are making things, and the consumers who are buying things, again selfishly, that somehow the selfishness of the producer, the selfishness of the individual consumers, that the whole thing works together for good, that there's a natural force in supply and demand, and an invisible hand protects the marketplace. We don't need government controls. So looking at mercantilism, which really governed the European nations in the age of exploration and discovery, and then the Physiocrats as the Enlightenment began to take over. Let's compare them. Mercantilism, everything's done for the benefit of the country. The Physiocrats believe that individuals should be benefited. Mercantilism, there's state controls. You have a strong state sending out ships, and they're getting gold and getting things back. Physiocrats, laissez-faire, let individuals step out as entrepreneurs and test the waters for how successful they can be. So don't let the government control, laissez-faire. Tariffs. Mercantilism believed in charging tariffs. In other words, protect your industries in the country, put up walls and tariffs so that you protect your native industries. Where Physiocrats believe in free trade. No, let freedom run. Let the markets interchange with each other. Don't put tariffs blocking them. Tariffs are like walls. Physiocrats said, give the colonies freedom. Let them use their entrepreneurship, their thinking, their creativity. And again, the extractive industries, agriculture, mining, logging, these are the things that bring wealth. Get the resources from your own country. Whereas mercantilism had said, control the colonies. Don't give them freedom. Don't ever give them freedom. Keep them in subjugation. And you want to get gold and silver for national wealth. Get these wherever you can. Extract them from the local natives. Do what you need to do. Okay, so we're going to compare now Enlightenment ideas compared with the Middle Ages. We've studied the Middle Ages. Divine right. Kings rule because God says so. That's a Middle Age idea. In the Enlightenment, no, let the most qualified person be king. Don't let some hereditary guy do it. In the Middle Ages, a strict class system. You're a serf. You're a knight. You're a lord. You're a king. A strict class system. In the Enlightenment, no, equality. We're all equal. Let people be equal. Let people, rise and fall according to their abilities. Give them equal opportunity. In the Middle Ages, okay, you're going to get a heavenly reward for your earthly suffering. So, labor hard all day knowing that there's a better life in the age to come. In the Enlightenment, right the wrongs of injustice here. Seek happiness here. There's not a focus on the afterlife. It's Enlightenment thinking tends to be secular thinking. So in the Middle Ages, the centerfold piece was the church and the Bible. In the Enlightenment, hey, it's reason on earth. Use your mind here. In the Middle Ages, tradition, the traditions of the church. In the Enlightenment, reason. Let reason and science be a cutting edge. Don't follow tradition. Follow the mind where it will take you. And then in the Middle Ages, government and church censorship. They should decide what gets into the public square. They should decide what people hear. They should sort of control the game. In the Enlightenment, no. Let there be freedom of speech. Let there be freedom of thought. Let people say and think what they believe. And then liberalism and conservatism. These are a little bit different than liberalism and conservatism in today's political culture in the U.S. But liberals believed anciently that constitutional government was good. If you have a constitution, that will protect people. Conservatives, on the other hand, hey, have a king who rules by divine right, then God will be blessing you through the king. That's the old way, the conservative way. The new way, hey, have a constitutional government. Liberals believed in equality. We hold these truths to be self-evident, Jefferson wrote, that all men are created equal. Conservatives know a class system. Some people are meant to be servants, some people are meant to be lords. Keep the class system. Conservatives say have respect for the established church. In England, it's the Church of England. Parts of Germany, it was, the Lutheran Church. Liberals, hey, have religious freedom. Have religious freedom. That's the way to have happiness here. Let everyone believe what they want to believe. You don't have to flow with the established church. Liberals believed in reason on earth. Conservatives believe in tradition, the church, the Bible. Liberals believed in freedom of speech and thought. They believed in natural rights. And conservatives believed that government and church censorship and a moral code. So you can see that the liberal philosophy is what the Enlightenment brought. It's a liberal way of thinking, a new way of thinking. It's not bound by the conservatism of the past in the Middle Ages. Okay, well, that's the end of 18.1 about the Enlightenment.